Hello, psychologically minded parents, and welcome to PsychologyWorks on parenting oppositional children. Hello, I'm Dr. Greenaway, clinical psychologist, and this is the first of a two-part video series, all looking at how to parent children when they become oppositional and defiant. All of the techniques and strategies can be used with any child if we want to have some parental sanity. So basically we want children to be doing what they're supposed to be doing. Also what we want to see is more family harmony. Everybody wants to live in a house where people are getting along and there's not a lot of screaming going on by the children or the parents. Now the traditional way of parenting, maybe the one that most of us grew up with, is there's a set of rules. If you follow the rules, everything goes okay. If you break the rules, you get punished. We're going to turn that system on its head, and we're going to look at what behaviors we want to see. What positive behaviors do we want to see? That if a person were to follow those positive behaviors, the negative behaviors would fall off by default. For example, if we take something pretty basic like jumping on the couch, in the traditional version it would be, if you jump on the couch, you get this punishment. Now we can still keep that, but that's going to be the secondary backup plan. The primary plan for a child who has difficulty refraining from jumping on the couch would be to try to figure out what is the positive opposite. The positive opposite of jumping on the couch is sitting appropriately on the couch, or sitting on the floor, or going to another room. There are many different positive opposites that we'd rather have the child do than to jump on the couch. And then what we're going to do is reinforce that positive opposite in a way that gets the child to do that, what we call extinguish a negative behavior, by promoting or reinforcing a positive opposite to that negative behavior. So what I want you to do right now, and you can pause the video if you need to, but we're going to make a list of the negative behaviors that your child's doing. And then we're going to come up with what would the positive opposite of those be. In my practice, some of the primary negative behaviors that tend to come up are not getting ready for school on time, or the child is not getting ready for bed on time. Another common negative one is hitting. The child's hitting somebody, or kicking, pinching, biting, nudging, elbowing, pulling, things like that, or throwing things at people, any kind of aggressive behavior. Some of the more subtle negative behaviors would be things like complaining, whining, if you're at a store, begging to be bought things. Another one that comes up very frequently is not turning off the screen, told to do so. Okay, so you have now a list of the negative behaviors. Now what we want to do is come up with the positive opposite. Let's look at some of the positive opposites of the other negative behaviors we talked about. For example, the one about not getting ready on time. A positive opposite to that would be something like, started getting ready by 6:30 a.m. We'll talk in another video about that specific problem, how to help kids get ready on time, so watch for that video. The positive opposite for not turning the screen off would be something like, when told to do so, the child will turn the screen off. The positive opposite for hitting, there's several. It depends on the situation. Some children just have difficulty tolerating the frustration of not getting what they want. So then we can phrase it and teach the child something like, go with the flow, accept that I didn't get what I wanted. And you can practice with the child. And we're going to talk about that in a future video too. Go with the flow. Another one for hitting would be, keep my hands to myself. Now you've got the basics for setting up a discipline program. You've listed the specific behaviors that you want to change, the negative behaviors that you want to stop, or if it's something that the child's not doing that they should be doing, you've listed those. And then you've thought about what would be the replacement behavior, otherwise known as the positive opposite. In the next video, we're going to look at reinforcers, what types of rewards are known to be effective. This is Dr. Greenaway saying good luck getting your positive opposites written down, And we'll see you in the next video. And remember, psychology works. Hello, psychologically minded parents. I'm Dr. Greenaway, and this is part 2 of a 2-part series looking at the foundations of how to parent oppositional children. Like I said, this is part 2 of a 2-part presentation on basically the foundations of how to parent oppositional children. And it really works for all children. So if you haven't watched part 1, you should go back and look at that one first. So what we were doing is looking at the negative behavior, and we came up with some examples. Jumping on the couch, not getting ready for school, hitting, biting, kicking, punching, slapping, nudging, elbowing, pulling, begging for a toy, not turning off the television or the video game when it's time. And we came up with what would the positive opposites of those be. Sitting on the couch, start getting ready for school by 6:30 a.m. When a person can explain why they're mad, they're less likely to hit. Let it go and just accept that they're not getting what they want. Talk about something else other than being bought a toy. Turning off the video game when told. So now we've got a list of what we're going to try to reinforce. And if we can reinforce those behaviors consistently, the negative behaviors drop off. Let's talk about reinforcers. We can use the word reward or reinforcers, and a lot of times parents think that means candy, gum, toys, more things to buy the child. They'll sometimes use the word bribe. Now let's talk about that for a second. We don't want to use the word bribe. When you're rewarding or reinforcing your child for a positive behavior, you shouldn't feel bad about it. You shouldn't feel like you're doing something that you shouldn't do. Think about the definition of a bribe. A bribe is something you pay someone so that they do something they're not supposed to do. What we're trying to do is reinforce a behavior that we want the child to do. And basically all of us are designed to behave in a way that gets us outcomes that we want. It's behaviorism. None of us are immune to that. So don't beat yourself up if you feel like you're doing something the child likes to get them to behave in a way that you want them to behave. We're going to talk about 2 kinds of reinforcers. There are primary reinforcers and there are secondary reinforcers. Primary reinforcers are things that the kid just naturally likes, things that he wants. Some examples, one big example that we don't want to miss is positive attention, positive regard from the parent. A sense of pleasing a parent is one of the most powerful reinforcers that we have. Giving praise, or a child getting praise, that's a reinforcer, and it goes hand in hand with this positive attention or feeling a sense of, when the child feels a sense of positive regard coming from the parent. A lot of these things that we consider reinforcers are niceties in life that the child is already getting. But what we want to do now is change it so that these niceties in life are contingent on the child behaving well. Other things could be an extra privilege, being allowed to do something. Activities that they like, riding a bike, getting to ride their bike, getting to choose a movie, getting dessert, staying up 10 minutes later. A lot of times we give these reinforcers or these rewards without even realizing that they should really be contingent on the kid's behavior. Getting to choose what music to listen to in the car. Some kids care about that, some don't. If yours is one that cares about that, use that as a reinforcer for positive behaviors on their part. Getting to go to the park, playing a game with a parent, getting ice cream, the parent reading to the child, any engagement, any activity that the child wants the parent to engage in with them can be considered a possible reinforcer. And again, I can't stress it highly enough, positive attention. What are secondary reinforcers? If primary reinforcers are what the kid just naturally likes. So let's look at the secondary reinforcers. These are things that they can trade in later. An example would be promising. If you're good in here, when we get home, you're going to get some ice cream. The other common one is when people use a sticker chart or a points chart or a check mark chart, or they're getting tokens of some sort that they're going to trade in later. It's kind of like our money system. So you have to know your child. You have to know what kinds of behaviors they're having trouble engaging in that you want them to engage in, and you have to know what turns them on, what causes them to have a positive feeling inside, so that we can start to pair the behavior with this positive feeling, and we do that through reinforcers. Let's use the token system, because those are easy. They're tangible, the child can see it, they can hold it. I can't say enough about the importance of timing. The closer in time that you can pair the positive behavior on the child with the reinforcer that you give them, your response, in other words, the closer those are in time, the more likely that the child will have an association between the behavior and that positive feeling. Now, we use these secondary reinforcers like tokens because you can't always have a friend over in the moment, and you can't have Cheetos as your reward in the moment, but you can always give the child a token, and that token will start to represent these other primary rewards, and the tokens will begin to cause a positive feeling for the child the same way your paycheck does for you as a parent. And if we're using the token system, it really works out easily, because you can have something like getting ready in the morning by 7:30 a.m. Every time you're ready by 7:30 a.m., you get 3 tokens. Every time we go into a store and you don't ask for a toy, you get 2 tokens. Every time you can sit on the couch for 30 minutes without jumping on it, you get a token. The other very important part of this plan is the child knowing what they're earning these tokens for. What can they turn them in for? And so we want to have a menu, so to speak. And an example would be being allowed to have potato chips with your dinner. That could cost 1 token. Choosing what restaurant to go to. Every kid has their favorite restaurant. If they get to choose, it's going to cost them a token. Going to the park, that could cost 2 tokens. In a perfect system, we don't have to do all the bookkeeping. The child's getting ready, the child's turning off the TV when you want them to, the child's sitting nicely on the couch, and they're having a nice life. They're getting chips with their meal, they're getting to listen to music that they like in the car, they're getting to have a friend over. And you don't have to do a balance sheet to make sure it's all getting accounted for. But when you have children who aren't living up to the expectations, then we need to do something where they can clearly see that when they behave in this way, the world turns out better for them. I will say you want to be generous with these tokens without over-satiating. That's the term that we use. You don't want the child to feel like they're on welfare, where they're working so hard, they're trying to, as hard as they can, to do these expected behaviors, but they just can't seem to make it work. And you also don't want to have a Bill Gates who has so many tokens that they don't have to behave in any way, shape, or form. That's nothing against Bill Gates. He's behaving very well, even though he probably doesn't have to. And so what we're looking for is a happy medium. We're looking for a middle class to upper middle class economy, where the child feels that the system's working for them. They do have to put in some effort because we're asking them to do some of these behaviors that just aren't in their nature. The other videos in this series on parenting oppositional children are going to be offshoots of those fundamentals, and you're going to see how specifically to apply them to specific problems that you may be having with your child. If you like this video, click like. Hopefully you're subscribed so that you'll be knowing when these other videos are coming. And always remember, psychology works.